It is 6:33 on Monday, April 9th, 2018, and we will call the school committee meeting to order. Our first business is our consent agenda, which consists of two sets of minutes from March 5th and March 19th. Did everyone get a chance to review those minutes? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any changes, edits, comments, questions? No? Okay. So all in favor to approve the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No visitors' comments tonight. No visitors.
Just David.
Just David. Unless, Dave, you wanted to as a visitor. Moving to new business. Business manager bid status and discussion. Cheryl?
So I've asked David here to speak to the process, where we are in the process.
Can you back up for 1 second?
Yes.
I was not at the meeting on one of those consent agendas, so can I still?
You can still vote. Yep.
Sorry, I just wanna make sure we're on the up and
Yeah.
up here.
You just couldn't make the motion, so.
Okay.
Today at 1 p.m. the bids were due for the business management services. We followed the state required 2-week posting, publication in the Journal in Boston, as well as publication in a local paper and posting at Town Hall. We had 3 individuals request, 3 organizations request bids, and only one submitted a completed bid, and that was the current vendor, TMS, Management Solution Incorporated. They submitted a bid price of $70,000 for the scope of the work, and they also submitted a rate for extra projects that might be assigned outside the scope for an hourly rate of $125. Those are the same prices they charged, they bid 2 years ago, the last time we did this. And 2 years ago, if you recall, we did a 1-year bid with an option to renew. And this current bid was pretty much the same scope of work, just with the dates changed. A 1-year contract option with an option for the school committee to extend for an additional year. So that's the bid results. At this point in time, the school committee has to do one of two, not tonight, but in the next 20 days, the school committee will have to do one of 2 things. They will either have to make an award to the lowest responsible bidder, and there's only one bidder, or they will have to take a vote to reject the bids. And if they choose to reject the bids, someone will just have to document, why it would be in the best public interest to do that. So one of those 2 actions will have to occur shortly.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Question, so did we have 2 separate advertisements for the position, or is this the only one?
So, you had requested a bid process for management, contract for business management services.
Yeah?
And then a job posting, so those are 2 different.
2 different things, okay,
approaches,
yeah.
to business management.
So what is I guess there is still time for the other one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So how do we reconcile the gap or overlap between these 2?
Right.
As Dave said, we have to act on this one. How long do we have on the other one? That's subject to at least 2 weeks of advertising and all that, correct?
Right,
Yeah.
so we have applicants for the job posting of Director of Business.
Okay.
And we've already established the interview committee and some tentative dates. And as long as that all sort of pans out, we would be able to present a decision based on the interview process.
Okay.
Would it be within the 20 days that we?
Yes, it should
Okay.
be, but I think in having a conversation with Mark today, it may require a conversation with Andy to say, he's aware that the school committee has asked for an exploration of the potential for a business manager. So it may be that I have a conversation with him and say, we're in the process and we may fall a little bit over the 20 days and have that conversation with
Okay.
him if he's willing to accept that.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure, please.
How would this work now going into the budget for next year for the business managers, since it hasn't been technically approved yet? I don't want to be in the same situation we were this year.
Right.
Right. So,
Meaning, you don't wanna be in the same position you are this year.
like with the second grade
In terms
teacher
of cost.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
and being accused of doing something inappropriate.
Right.
So would that be okay? Like, would we be in a safe spot there?
I think it would be a decision of the school committee as to how to address that, whether there were other priorities in the budget than what was presented.
But what we would be talking about would be the difference between 70,000 and whatever the final decision was made on the pay for that person. Okay.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. I know it's not on the agenda, but since we're talking about bids, did we have a separate bid to explore lunch services?
We will be going out to bid for lunch services because this is the second renewal on Chartwell's contract. So we'll put forth a bid. Chartwell's, I believe, will bid. We do have another service that works mainly in New Hampshire and Vermont that had expressed interest in bidding. So, we'll make sure they're aware of the opening for the bid as well and post it where we need to post it, the local paper, the Boston paper, and the state bid list, so that we'll get as many candidates as we can get.
Yeah. Do you know what the timeline would be on that?
I would say probably within the next week, 2 weeks tops,
To get it back or
to send it, to prepare and send it out.
Okay. So how would that, going back to Mike's question, how would that impact anything in our budget related to lunch services?
Well, technically speaking, it's in the school budget is just the amount for the contingency for when it runs over. I mean, it would be nice to actually get a bid that somebody says they can run operations, so it can break even or make a profit.
Right.
And it's supposed to have no impact on the budget. Right now, we have a $16,000 contingency for running a deficit, so we would have to see what the bid presentations are in terms of what they would bid at and what their expected profit or loss would be.
Okay.
And where is this company based out of?
They say they operate mainly in Vermont and New Hampshire.
That's a hike.
Well, but I mean, I guess it depends on how big they are and whether they want to enter another state as a new market.
Okay. And those are the traditional lunch services vendors, right? Are there alternatives that may be options for us? Such as the way we used to run in-house, sharing somebody else that does in-house. I don't know, cater. I mean, options in terms of us being able to say we really explored this, we really put everything on the table.
Well, that was something that we talked about, right, was,
Right.
Possibly bringing it in.
yeah.
How would we even begin to figure out that?
That's a whole other exploratory process.
Well, I had done the survey of other communities close, I believe that was the Hampshire Valley, the Hampshire contingent that I sent requests to. And it was a mixed bag. Some were doing their own internal food service. and some were doing, a contracted services.
Mhm.
Most are running a deficit, and, you know, most would prefer not to be, but recognize that,
Running the
with-
program or running the deficit?
Yeah, they would prefer probably not to be running the program,
Okay.
to be honest, but, it, again, it depends on your personnel,
Yeah.
and I think the ability that you have to manage that,
Why did we, go outside? Does anybody know? Dave, do you know?
Yeah, there were several reasons. I think the main one was financial. And once upon a time, in the 1990s, we had a lot of money in that account. The program was totally self-sufficient, and even if there was a major breakdown of a piece of equipment in the kitchen that cost a lot of money to fix, we were able to absorb it with the school lunch account. Things changed. As costs increase for food, for labor, the government subsidies did not. Reimbursements from the government did not. So there was, the costs were increasing at a rate much greater than the revenue. Regulations came in that increased cost significantly. Regulations, some from the state of Massachusetts, some from the federal government. I can tell you that once upon a time, we made a lot of money on selling snack foods. It was a very high revenue moneymaker for that program. A lot of that is now prohibited by law. So that option doesn't exist. So regulations in terms of what you have to serve for food increased the cost of your raw material significantly. So the costs increased, and we had experimented with different things internally. We just didn't make a rash decision and say, this, we can't do this, we're gonna go out to, the business office, the superintendent back at the time, as well as school board members worked and played around with it for at least a couple of years until they finally realized that, you know, in their minds at that time, the best option would be to look for an alternative. I wanna say that, you know, that the deficit got quite hefty, but before we had a contractor in here, the deficit had been quite significant. So that was the reason we went out. I will tell you, when we did, as a side note, it does require a lot of when you have your own program in-house, it requires a lot of administrative support. Right now, you have school administrators, principals, that really don't have to worry too much about the day-to-day operations in the kitchen. That will change if you decide to bring it back in-house. That will change. Time, that is, you know, someone is gonna have to assume that responsibility. And it's a significant amount of time that somebody, or more than somebody, several people will have to spend on daily operations of running the kitchen.
Which is why I think we opted to sort out the business manager thing first, before we explored doing anything significantly different with the food service program. I thought that's what where we were at a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we
Yeah.
should, that's just my own opinion, I don't think we should be making two really significant changes at the same time.
I'd like to explore.
Well, I don't mind exploring either, and this is only, I mean, with the food service contract, I think we're talking about a 1 year plus, you know, plus an additional second year, which would kind of fall into the right timeline of, if we decided to go in that direction, we'd have a business manager with some experience and just getting their feet wet, and they can start looking at this,
We
right?
can stagger,
Yep.
it, I agree.
Yeah.
It would give us a full year to
Discuss and look and plan,
explore
yeah.
and, yes, and prepare for if that's the direction that we were heading in.
I just had one other question on the contract. Has anybody approached the town about this senior center and maybe packaging that as one contract and see if that would work and, you know, maybe get a better quote? Because it'd be more meals, right?
Well, we did talk about that, didn't we?
But we
think
never
talked
got an
about it,
answer.
but I don't think we went out.
What does the senior center do now for their lunch program?
I think that's all volunteer, isn't it? Are they
I don't
making
know.
all that?
I don't know what it is.
I don't
I
think
thought
so.
it was.
They were here
Yeah.
prior to them having that new facility. They were in Reese. We had a contract with West Mass Elder Care. We used to provide meals
Yeah.
for approximately the same number of days that we served students.
I just thought that one of the issues that Chartwell's was having was the drop in the enrollment. They didn't plan for that, but if you had the senior center, that would be more meals that might help offset some of that unexpected drop.
Mm.
Do we have any visibility into the planning process for lunch program? Or is this something that they do and they say this is the cost of it?
They pretty much price out a cost as to what it takes to
Okay.
run their operations.
And that is the part that really I find, at least from our perspective, unacceptable. That when you get into some even little detail that it's all enrollment based, and we're looking at an enrollment that is declining, and apparently they are not. And I'm wondering. I mean, it may be the other way too. That even if they did account for enrollment decline, the cost is such that on margin they're losing money. That's possible, and then they have to reflect that. But we never really are able to have that conversation. So, from my perspective, the last time we had the conversation, it went in the direction of the main factor being enrollment, decline in enrollment. And it didn't really make any sense to me that everybody budgeting for declining enrollment, and they had not. It could have been the menu. It could have been the waste. We never get to those conversations either, where we're not wasting a lot. Someone who talks waste every day in terms of process waste, this and that. Not a lot is not quantity. And it may be nothing. They may be awesome, and just they may be really finding that sweet spot where they're not wasting a lot. But we pay for when anybody pays for a service, there should be that conversation that is candid enough that allows us to understand what is and what is not. And that is the challenge that we're having. And to be very honest with you, yeah, we can do it next year. And we may do it next year or the year after that, whatever it is. But the reason why I would like to explore everything in detail is because when we go to any one of these meetings, I would like to be able to say these were the options. This is what was out, just like your regionalization analysis. And we can even go to regional schools association, ask for more, so that everybody understands. Just everything is being discussed. When it cannot be discussed even around this table, that is a problem to me. So that's my little rant there. Thank you, Mark, for looking into that.
Well, they'll be coming in on the 23rd, so.
Oh, that's good.
You can have that discussion with them.
Good.
And I will say that, we do have conversations to the degree that, like, in terms of watching expenses, like, if they know the schedules, like getting us back to one lunch scheduled for the junior and senior high school, so they can trim staff, and so it's not, it's not like it's a complete black box, so there isn't some conversation about what they think they can do to try to trim expenses, because they would like to turn a profit too, so it's
Yeah.
not, I don't wanna give that impression either.
No, and obviously everybody will try to turn a profit, so they look for the interests of their business. That's all understood. I would be very curious to see whether or not the efficiencies that they mentioned last time, because the schools are, what that means in terms of prices and how we're going to be able to leverage the brand new kitchen, the efficiencies, and all that. So we'll see what it is. Maybe we can have a better conversation. Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Nope. Going back to old business, we have our senior trip to talk about, and is this an update or is this
It's an update.
approval?
You probably need to do the final approval.
Okay.
Because you had done contingent approval. I think that they've put all of the pieces in place. They have 26 students going, 3 teachers and a nurse. They will be leaving on May 4th at 12:30 and returning on May 6th at 7. So they are very excited to be able to have this experience. Hopefully we'll be able to continue that.
Yeah. My question always is, seeing the number of students, how many of the students from this class, which is about, what, 57 students, how many of them chose not to go? How many of them could not go because of the cost? Do we know?
I don't know the answer to that, but certainly, once the trip wraps up, I think we can survey the students not only that went, but also that attended, so we can get a feel for the success of the trip, and so that we can make an informed decision for next year.
Okay, so it is 440, and is this the final cost, or is this pre-mitigation? Are they still working on?
Pre-mitigation,
Okay.
I think that's pre-fundraiser.
Okay. And that would not help increase the numbers, or is it still a possibility?
It wouldn't, I don't think they could change their numbers right now,
Okay.
because I think that they've reserved what they've reserved. So, you know, I do know that there was much discussion about being financially prudent, but also offering support and help where that might occur. So whether it was extra fundraising or scholarships, I know that those were discussed.
Okay. Alrighty, so did you say that we need to approve it tonight?
Yes, final.
Okay, did everybody get a chance to look at
Yes.
numbers? Okay, is there a motion to approve the senior trip for the class of 2018?
I'll make that vote.
Okay. Second?
Yeah, second.
Right, any questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Budget FY18.
Well, FY18, we usually do it in the second school committee meeting of the month, so
Okay.
I will do that on the 23rd.
Mark, if you're so excited that you want to jump on it, 19. 19 is good too.
Yeah, well, I'm here pretty much in case whatever discussion we want to have about 19.
Okay. What do we have since last week that may have changed for 19, if anything?
Really, no changes.
Okay.
So the only change is, as a result of the joint meeting, trying to schedule the next joint meeting to see if there was going to be any relief from the budget parameters. Because that really is probably the only short-term solution. So whether or not the idea that minimum net school spending plus the override of $305,979 from 2005, whether that parameter, whether there was any relief whatsoever in that parameter. So that's what the next joint meeting was going to be about, and I do believe that the select board is meeting tonight. That's really the only thing that would change or shape our FY19 budget.
Okay.
So that we could.
Do we know if there's any discussion planned for their meeting?
I believe there's discussion planned. I don't know whether there'll be outcome.
Yeah.
I also know, Kathy, we've reached out to the town to see about the joint meeting.
Right.
Have we heard yet?
No, we haven't heard back.
Oh, we haven't. Oh, I made the assumption that it was on the 17th.
Kathy hasn't gotten back to me.
So it's not confirmed yet for the 17th that we've heard. So the only thing we heard was that the dates we gave of Thursday, today, and tomorrow were not, people were not available for.
Okay.
So when do we follow up?
So my hope is that, based on the select board meeting, I can have a conversation with Chris, and those two things. You know, is there any relief in the budget parameters, and then, when's the next joint meeting scheduled?
And are we still meeting tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
I'll be off, right.
The draft budget that we had with what we know and the actuals, has it been submitted yet or shared? with the select board and finance committee?
Yes.
Okay.
The budget actuals, no, but, yes, the budget, the FY19 budget.
Okay, when will we be able to share the actuals?
If you're ready to share the actuals, we'll share the actuals.
Well, we are, but I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't, but I'm assuming there was a consideration for some cleanup or something that kept us, since we already made that decision that we were going to share the actuals and the budget. FY 16-17 budget and actuals, 18-19 budget, right?
And has that been shared?
That has not been shared yet, no.
Okay. If
We can share that,
okay,
yes, that's
if
fine.
if the cleanup is done, just the Excel spreadsheets and everything, they'll look fine. Just we can go ahead.
Okay.
We just wanted to make sure school committee was on board with sharing it.
And when we say sharing, we're sharing with everybody, right?
I send to Chris Martin and CC Emery and Mark Bale.
Can we also send to the finance committee,
Yeah.
since they are direct recipient and they are
So,
part of the joint?
Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we just send it out to everybody? Everybody on the finance committee, everybody on the select board, Chris Martin, the school committee. Is there a reason why we don't do that? When it comes to
There might be.
That's why I'm asking, I mean,
I mean, I think historically, Chris Martin takes the responsibility to share with FinCom and Select Board. I think that's probably just why.
Well, I guess,
that might be historically how it's done, but considering that we've gotten into these situations where, well, I haven't seen this and I haven't seen that, and, I wanna make sure that everybody has enough time to review the information.
that was gonna be actually
Nobody would be
part of my
surprised.
question was based on what you just said, is have we gotten to the bottom of what a line item budget is to the finance committee? Because apparently we've been sharing things, but they haven't deemed it as what they were looking for, so have we gotten to that point yet too?
Yeah,
I believe what we shared at the joint meeting, I did not hear back that was not considered a line item budget. So as far as I understand, I have received no feedback that that's
Which
not
happens
what
to be
they're
the same
is exactly.
detail that we shared the last couple of years, at
So-
the very least.
Again, this is just me, and I don't know, maybe this is the way my brain works, but if it were me, I would send it out to everybody. And I would also say, considering we are arranging our next meeting, if this information is not exactly what you all were looking for, please contact us prior to such and such a date so we can provide you with the information that you need.
Which I would agree with, because we wanna be transparent here, right? This is what we have. If you think you need more,
think
let
we
us
need
know
to do
now.
that.
We'll see what we can do to get it for you, right?
I think one safe assumption is that no news does not mean good news. No
Yeah.
news just means
Yeah.
crickets.
Yeah.
So we can't show up to another meeting and hear, we don't have the information we need.
Yeah.
Okay, so seems that we're all on the same page. So in terms of do we need any, well, we didn't have any, we're not gonna have a joint meeting. I was gonna ask, we probably need to have, or try to have, one more conversation around FY19 to see what is and what is not, and then go through some of the details. Even between the last time and the joint meeting, there was some change. I'm not sure what that corresponds to, the 38,000, or a little more than around $40,000 reduction from the version that we last left with and what we mentioned at the joint meeting. So if those changes are happening, it would be great to understand where they are happening, what other options exist, what are we looking into in terms of any additional efficiencies or changes, deferrals, whatever it might be, so that we can then approve it.
Right. Yeah, so if we look at the timeline, I'm thinking, April 23rd is your next school committee meeting. So if we had the joint meeting before, and if there were any changes to the parameters that were set, then we could, work that into the budget, and then have the school committee vote the budget for the public hearing, and also for, the town meeting.
So here's the part where I always struggle. Having the vote before the public hearing kind of makes public hearing moot. And I don't know if you said what you said translates to this, but what I understood is that we could potentially approve it before the public hearing. Is that what it is? Even though we have a public hearing scheduled coming up, but we wanted to have it after the joint meeting because there are certain things that are not clear yet, correct? So if we move it, it's going to be that week of the 23rd. Is that what the week is? So if we cannot have it as part of that meeting on the 23rd and give an opportunity to everyone to chime in and just give us their input, feedback, whatever they would like to share, it makes the public hearing part moot, correct?
So, don't forget, we had a public hearing scheduled for Thursday,
Yeah.
April 12th. So, if you're looking for, input from the community, that certainly is a time that people would have. I wouldn't necessarily call it a public hearing, but maybe it's a public forum, so that we can share where we are to date, receive comment and feedback from the community, and then work that in, to our discussions on the 23rd. That doesn't answer your question about the public hearing being moot at that point, because it's after the school committee votes.
Right.
I suppose, you know.
Then again, public hearing, if we're going to get together for public hearing, we can easily schedule that as, and it has to be, right? Because we're going to have a quorum anyway. Or I think we're going to have a quorum.
Wait, this Thursday?
No,
The other one, okay.
20-something.
23rd.
I will be here.
If it's 23rd, it's better. It basically takes care of the situation. But if it's after the 23rd that we're having the public hearing, the 23rd is our scheduled meeting.
And that's when we vote on the budget.
That's when we could vote on the budget. But what I'm saying is that I would prefer not to vote on the budget before we have an official public hearing. And if we cannot schedule that public hearing for that night, for the 23rd, then probably we're going to have a quorum anyway. We're going to call it a school committee meeting, and then we're going to vote right after the public. Right, so if we do it,
You need 2 weeks to post the public hearing.
that's correct. But
But the 23rd won't give us 2 weeks.
oh yeah, that's true, because we missed today. Yeah.
It would have, you know.
Yeah.
by the time it probably wouldn't go into-
So I think we're going to have to do it that way, because for the public hearing, we're going to be here, we're going to have our meeting, we do the public hearing, then we vote for it. I think that's the better way of doing it.
So are you saying change the school committee date from the 23rd?
No, we can keep that. I mean, even now we're saying that we cannot have it on the 23rd anyway. We're going to have to come back for the public hearing. Did you understand?
No.
So on the
I'm the only one, right?
the 23rd of April, we have our regularly scheduled
Yes.
meeting. You need to have a 2-week
I'm with you
advance
on that.
notice.
I'm with you on
We
that.
missed that window today,
that too.
so that hearing cannot be on the same night as our regularly scheduled
Right.
meeting,
Right,
which means the public hearing will have to be after the 23rd.
got that too.
So if we already have our 23rd meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and since the public hearing is not going to be without us, we're going to be here for the public hearing. So what I'm saying, that would be a scheduled school committee meeting. After the public hearing, we convene and then we vote for it.
Okay, so you're saying, do not, let me rephrase. You're saying do not take the vote on the budget on the 23rd, but have the public hearing and then vote that night of the public hearing.
Yes, because if we
Yes.
do vote before the public hearing, it goes back to the point where we started the conversation. It just tells people, hey, tell us what you want, but we already voted for it.
Yeah.
So I then would ask, we will still keep the 12th, but I will let people know that it's a public forum, not a public hearing. 'Cause
Yes, so
were
we have to
supposed
change
do
some of the
12th language.
notifications online as well, that,
And then
It's
would
now.
people be available for April 30th, which is Monday,
for what?
the public hearing?
Okay.
And,
Did we check to see whether it's still okay, since it's gonna be a couple of weeks before
Mhm.
the town meeting?
Yep,
We checked?
it's fine, yep.
Oh, it's fine. Okay, then we're good. I'm good.
Okay.
Are you guys good?
Good.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
I just need
So
a
then we're-
scorecard though.
We're also gonna meet on the 23rd.
Yes.
The 23rd is actually a really busy meeting, so just to give you the heads up, it will be strategic planning. The committee will be presenting the strategic plan. And now that I've said that, I'm drawing a complete blank. Chartwells,
The calendar.
the calendar. Is that it?
FY18 update.
FY18 update, so it's a busy meeting, which is a good thing. So we probably could have done the hearing and the vote anyway.
All right.
So then the 30th, would that only be the public hearing and the vote on the budget? Cause I think
Yeah.
that, I
Yep.
don't wanna pack the
Yep.
30th with all kinds of other agenda items.
So what's going on this Thursday? Are we meeting?
So it's open house for East Meadow.
Yep.
So we're going to have the public forum at East Meadow, in the cafeteria. So we will present, the budget process to date, where we are, and that, we're waiting for the next joint meeting. We will have some information from the select board meeting this evening. And be asking for, parent input and community input into the budget.
So then you can announce that
And
the
then we can
actual
announce the
budget
actual-
hearing.
right.
I will not be at this Thursdays.
Yeah.
We'll be able to.
This Thursdays?
Yeah.
I'll be there
Okay.
in one form or another, because the scouts are also doing a recruiting thing.
Oh, nice, good.
So I'll either be there or here, or with the group, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was intrigued when you said I'm gonna be there
I'm
one
thinking of
one
another.
form or another.
Yeah. In spirit.
I get multiple things happening on the same night lately, and it's tough.
I know your pain.
I think we all do.
All right, so we'll do that. And all those are starting at 6:30, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions on FY19? So the decisions are we're gonna share, and then, okay, so when are we gonna be able to continue this conversation on FY19? That's the 23rd?
Right. Yep. So on the 23rd, we'll give any updates and any changes. For example, John Sullivan just found out that the DEP is going to require more testing of well 3. And so he had to adjust his budget for water testing upwards of $5,000. So, those are the things that, as Mark has been known to say, at some point, we just need to vote the budget. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, we have to work
Right.
within that. But
Did
up
you-
until that point, there are still some fluctuations that are happening.
Didn't we rechannel the pipes for the project, and that became part of? Didn't that become part of the project? Is this completely separate?
It's completely separate. This is the
Okay.
requirement for testing for some of the groundwater, because this is former farmland, and the concern around some of the residual effects of that. So this is additional testing that the DEP is requiring,
Huh.
as the well stays online. We completed all the testing prior, and that has all passed, and there was additional testing that was required. And this is now, as
Mhm.
it goes on and the well is online, they wanna continue testing.
55 years later.
55 years.
That's, I guess better
I mean,
late,
you
better
know,
late
when
than
you
never,
look at-
right?
You look at some of the contamination stories that are out there, I can understand where they're coming from.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that, you know,
Yeah,
but
but it is- it's
that there
amazing
was
that
nothing
that
before
many-
before before then.
Well, and I think the other thing that they're cautious about is the fact that the fire training that's happened in the back,
Oh, okay.
at the fire,
Alright.
at the fire pond and those kinds of things. So there's been some other activity
Yep.
that they're just wanting,
Alright.
they're being very careful about.
But,
so.
but isn't there a well, like did they have to do a whole new well? I mean, I guess my question is, what's different between this well and the well that's for the existing school? That they feel the need for?
Location, I mean,
Okay.
they're in very different places.
Okay, I wasn't
Yeah.
aware, I was just kinda curious,
Yeah.
and in the end, they're gonna, demand what they need, right? So
Right.
they're
Yeah.
gonna do it.
It could possibly be related to what I thought was the case. Whatever is going to serve the other school had to be tested as part of the project. So they did a series of tests, in fact, pretty extensive tests for that one. But that was part of the project. I thought all the wells were part of the project because, you know,
Right.
if one fails, you have to
Right.
provide, you know, through the other. I guess that's not the case. So my assumption, and it's complete speculation, that those were the wells that were part of the school building project. So they were already checked. Because you had to submit, you have
Right.
to, yeah.
So prior to the town taking ownership of the building, the testing has been going on through the project. What John received now is, in order for us to maintain the well and to be in alignment with DEP, they're requiring more testing than what we have had previously. So there's an extra cost to that. So John is working with Whitewater, our water testing company, to make the recommendation of what those additional tests will cost over the year. They're quarterly tests, which we were not required to do prior.
And honestly, there is this list of, I don't know, 400, 500 schools that have
Right.
contaminated water. I'd rather invest and not be on that list than,
Right.
right?
Yes.
That's important for the kids, so.
Yep.
Cool.
But it was a surprise. But the things like that have sort of, they sort of crop up, especially now as we're working through these pieces. So, but as I will say one more time, at some point, Cheryl, you've got to vote the budget.
I agree.
And then stay inside,
Yeah.
and just understand and I think communicate effectively to the community when things, go beyond what you budgeted.
Which happens on a regular basis.
Mhm. The unanticipated expenses, the tuitions, when
And round and round we
And
go.
round and round.
Go-see go.
Okay. I was gonna just throw this out. If the idea is to really have that conversation and the input, but things can change, as you said. I mean, this Thursday we have a public hearing that was already scheduled. Granted, 2 members will not be there. I'm wondering how is that any different than really having a public hearing later and still.
Right. In my mind, the difference is, based on the presentation that we made at the joint meeting, there seems to be a better understanding of the parameter not being sufficient. And based on that, my hope is that either the conversation tonight at the select board or when we reconvene the joint
I see.
may have a substantial impact, hoping, a substantial impact on the budget parameter. And because that sets our baseline, that sets the tone and tenor of the conversation for the public hearing differently.
That makes sense.
Differently. And if it doesn't, and we're right where we started, no harm, no foul.
Right.
It's the same place we have been in the past.
Yeah, so you want to be able to present a more solid number,
Yes.
and right now, because that conversation hasn't been finalized, we don't know where we stand.
Right.
That's fair.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
cool. So are we then saying that in the upcoming business, we have public hearing? Do we have anything else on 2019, FY19 budget? Okay, so for the public hearing, we're saying that's a forum now, not our public hearing.
Correct.
We still want folks to come and we're gonna have a presentation of what we have so far
Right.
in the budget, okay? And then we're gonna have that conversation, these are our takeaways from this conversation. We're gonna have the conversation with the town, with Chris probably, to find out whether or not we're having that joint meeting. And based on that, we're gonna post for the public hearing, probably that will, well, actually, we said the 30th, right? So it's gonna be 30th, okay. Any other questions on the public hearing?
Just wanted to bring up the thing that I emailed you about, when we post the meetings. And I haven't had a chance to do anything with it either.
Yeah, details? Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought, I mean, I guess a lot of people just kind of pay their taxes and assume things are gonna kind of work out in their favor, which probably doesn't always happen unless you have a neighborhood that sees life exactly the same way you do, and they're at the meeting raising their hand and voting. I just thought it might be beneficial to kind of explain what was supposed to happen and why it was important for people to be there at the public meeting, or the public hearing, and then the town meetings especially, to kind of say, it's not really just you pay your taxes and the money just magically appears where it needs to go, in the best interest of, you know, you particularly, unless you're there to help move it in the direction you want it to go. That's all.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
And I had that conversation with my wife, and ironically, right on the heels of that conversation, I read something in the newspaper about how Amherst is reconfiguring their town meetings because they don't wanna, like, I believe they convened a board of 16 or something like that, who are gonna take care of these little details for the townspeople.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we all agreed to a while ago. It's just that it was nice to talk about the communication plan. It's just that we have to implement it, and you know, right now, it's almost impossible to find time to do that. At least for me. But I agree with you that there should be more detail explaining, and this is a conversation about civics and our, you know, obligations and opportunities and how we get involved. So if we can broaden that conversation is good. It's just that we need the time and manpower to be able to do that. So, but it doesn't take away the significance of what you're doing. And you know, if I have any time in the coming days, I will do that absolutely. And this gives me a little more time to. I'm talking about the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so with that, there's a policy item which we were never able to do, the policy updates. So the remaining pieces to really bring in front of the school committee to be able to approve those
Sure.
before,
Yeah.
you know, we,
We promised Deanne we'd have
Yeah.
it done before.
yes.
Time's ticking.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be very fair, and this is not even a joke, almost each time we scheduled
I know.
a policy meeting, there was a snowstorm or
Something.
something that we couldn't even do it.
It
So
was just-
either we were the cause of the snowstorms, or
It's not even safe to post them yet.
I know.
No.
Snow tomorrow.
no,
Oh, gosh.
really?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you serious?
I'm serious, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
But it's gonna be like 70 on Friday.
all right. Well,
Let's just skip tomorrow then.
I have to
Staying
drive
there all
tomorrow.
day.
Anyway,
I will doodle you again. Again.
cool.
Yeah.
So, go into our standing reports. Do you have a superintendent's
I
report?
only have that we have started our sports season. It has been cold and rainy, but the kids are out there and being very successful. I did announce last time the drama theater presentation, which was a pleasure. But we really have been knee-deep in budget, so, that has been our focus. And I did send out a text to all of my principal friends, and they clearly are knee-deep in, MCAS and testing, so, we do, you know, wish the students, or hope that the students try their best on our standardized testing. We remind students all the time that it's just one measure of the work they do, but to try their best, and it's good information for the teachers to have, so that they can adjust instruction, but also we can work on curriculum as well, so.
Yep.
That's all I've got.
Thank you. Collaborative?
Yeah, we met last week, I believe, or the week before. Big discussion or big presentation on kids who are institutionalized and the different programs they have around those kids, especially around the 3 different phases, whether they're pre-trial or they've been institutionalized or on the re-entry back into the, the community, the different programs and different things that the collaborative does around the state. There was discussion around the budget. Based on the way they're structured, they tend to spend a lot of money early in the fall and then wait for the money to start rolling in. So early in the fall, when we had the budget update, it looked like they were losing a lot of money, but now things are starting to fall back into where they're supposed to be, and they're on track. And the biggest part of the night turned out to be prep for the executive director's review. Some of what we had to do with Cheryl, we have to do for Bill. A lot of the night was spent on his packet of his evidence of the things that he accomplished throughout the year that he wanted us to take into consideration when we were doing the write-up. He did have one quick thing in his executive director's report. I guess there's been a bill in the state that's been horse traded around the last few years and never really makes the budget or never makes it into a vote, but I think this year it's taken a step further than it ever has, and it's a bill that will allow the collaboratives to actually take a bigger role and actually get grants that they currently are not able to do, where they're looked at very similar to like a school, a district would be. So he was pretty excited about that. It was a long night, but a lot of it was the details around that evidence package.
Honestly, when you think about it, we can just come up with different ways. Since the collaborative is focusing on special education a lot, if some of those grants were specifically for that, and whatever fluctuations we are trying to absorb, if they could absorb some of that with their budget, so we could send more students who are qualified to go to their types of programs, that would help too. But I know that they're trying, and they have this funny pricing mechanism that they can't really lower it more than a certain amount, right? Something like that.
Well, I asked a question about this, and it didn't make a whole lot of sense, even the answer, but I mean, I guess it's a law, so that don't have to make sense, they just have to be, right? So apparently they charge the districts, or the member districts, a cost amount, and they're only allowed to charge 10 or 15% over that for non-members. But yet when you look at some of their pricing schemes, they're 1/3 the cost of what it would take to go to these other places. So personally, I think the law needs to be looked at to allow them to look at some of these other places and say, well, if they're charging $1,500 and I'm charging $700, I'm not legally allowed to go closer to that $1,500 and be in line with them.
Well, they can't go up.
Yeah.
So I thought they could not even lower it for the members, but that was because they're
doing it at cost.
They had to, yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Well, that was it.
Thank you. Was there a building committee meeting lately?
No, it's actually Thursday scheduled, but I don't know if they're gonna hold it.
Okay, I did not
I
see anything
didn't
yet.
hear that there was any reason to, but I'm not sure I got any notification.
Okay. Alright, policy subcommittee.
Cheryl's gonna send out us a doodle.
Again.
That's a great update. Yeah. Yeah, let's try to squeeze it in.
Yeah.
I don't mind
Yeah.
doing it a couple
Alright.
of quick evenings and then we can wrap it up. We don't have a executive session.
I do need an
You
executive
do?
session.
Oh, I didn't even see it. Oh, okay, it's on top of the page. Okay, so anything else? Anything that we missed? Anybody wanted to mention, or any topics for the meeting on the 23rd that you wanted to include? Okay, so with that, we're gonna vote to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21, Part A3, to discuss strategy with regard to collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session. Can we do a roll call, please?
Deanne Payne Rakowski, aye.
Jen Curran, aye.
Emery Everett, aye.
Mike Simpson, aye.
Thank you. Have a good evening.